Hello and welcome to a short BiteWISe video introduction to research data management. The easiest way to think about research data is that it is the smallest building blocks of your research. So an individual piece of research data might be a single survey response, an archive document or photograph, or the result of a single experiment. The data can be considered to be qualitative or quantitative, and research data can be anything that is created, observed or collected for the purpose of analysis to validate a research question. Research data can be analogue or digital, and digitized or born digital. In this way, research data is created by anyone who is conducting research, even if it might not seem like it. Research data management is a term covering all of the activities around organising, structuring, storing and caring for data produced during your project. And so it can be considered to be both a day-to-day process that happens through the life of the project and a consideration of what happens to the data at the end of the project. Throughout the life cycle of a piece of research, it's key to consider 5 key areas. Firstly, what data will you be producing? Your research question will determine what kinds of research you need to do and thus what research data you might produce. Key questions to consider here are what kinds of data are you producing, not just the file format, but how you create that data in the first place. How easy is it to create or reproduce? Who owns the data, and are there any legal or ethical considerations to do with that data? Secondly, how will you look after the data during the project? Can you find the data you're looking for quickly and easily? What kinds of file naming strategies might you need to use, and how will you organise the folders of data? What level of anonymisation will you need to do as you gather the data or afterwards? You will also need to consider how you're storing the data and what levels of backups are needed. Will you need to encrypt your data, which is especially important if you're using data that identifies individuals? And finally, who will have access to the data throughout the project? Thirdly, can you and others understand your data? Have you left yourself enough of a Rosetta Stone to be able to understand your data at a later date? Important things to include in any documentation to go with data are who created it, when and why, a description of the data, a description of any methodologies and methods used, definitions of units of measurement, jargon, acronyms or any codes that might be used within the data, and references to related data that you may have looked at elsewhere. Fourthly, what data will be deposited and where? Research data is a valuable resource, and sharing data after a project completes can encourage further research branching from the original project, can lead to new collaborations, encourages the transparency and the improvement of research practice, can reduce the cost of further data collection, and can increase your profile as a research output in its own right, in the same way as a journal article or book chapter. Research funders, such as the Research Councils UK and the Wellcome Trust, have added the requirement for data sharing as a condition of funding. The Registry of Research Data Repositories can help you find an appropriate repository in your discipline, or get in contact with us here in the library for more advice. Finally, how will you preserve your data? Data can have a life of its own after the end of the research project, and can be used in ways that the original researchers may not have been able to predict when they created the data. The study of climate change is a good example of this. Much of the evidence that has been used by researchers to demonstrate the effects of climate change were originally collected for a range of different projects, and it was only when researchers combined these various datasets that the climate change evidence was obvious. How long you need to store your data will depend on what the data is and what requirements you're under. Managing research data is an important part of the research process, and data management plans, or DMPs, are frequently a requirement of new funding applications. DMPs can be a key way to ensure that you have considered and covered all aspects of data management for your project, and it's never too late to do one for your research. A summary of the requirements of the major research funders for DMPs has been put together by the Digital Curation Centre as part of their DMP Online tool. By using this tool to develop a data management plan for a project, you can be sure to have covered all the areas required for robust research data management.